What's up, family? This is Brother Prodigy, and today is April the 13th, 2015. And this topic that I'm going to be discussing is in relation to our reality and how it presently exists as a dream world. Our present reality is essentially a dream world, okay? Now, I'm not saying that what you experience is not quote unquote real. However, I'm here to tell you that the reason why it seems real is because your mind makes it real. Your mind makes it real. Okay? And the concept of reality is subjective and varies from each and every being. Now, let's define our terms. Dream. Dream is essentially defined as a series of images, ideas, emotions, and sensations occurring involuntarily in the mind during certain stages of sleep. A state of abstraction to pass time, in parentheses, idly or in reverie. Now, and when I was looking up these definitions, I thought it was interesting because they put time in parentheses. And this is also just a side note. Anything that is placed within parentheses can and should be excluded or omitted, but is present in order to more properly convey a thought or idea. So anytime you see, especially in law or in a court situation, or when you're receiving documents, okay, anything that appears or is placed within parentheses should be excluded or omitted, but it's just placed in the text or in the document for emphasis or for clarity, if you will. All right, so another definition of dream coming out of psychology is a mental activity rather, usually in the form of an imagined series of events occurring during certain phases of sleep. Okay, and that these definitions I'm pulling from the American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language, copyright 2011. So, essentially, a dream is a series of images which denotes a digital representation of something, as the word digital is more properly defined as something that is expressed in discrete numerical form, especially for use by a computer or other electronic device, or something that is characterized by widespread use of computers. So this digital reality can be understood using mathematics, geometry, algebra, etc., as it is essentially one big digital program ran by a series of computers or intelligences, also known as the Elohim. These intelligences are the Elohim. Okay? Those that are basically running these digital programs. Now, let's define sleep, and the reason why I'm getting into these definitions is because I want to bring everyone on and align everyone with a common understanding of where I'm really coming from. So, the definition of sleep, a state in which a computer shuts off or reduces power to its peripherals, okay, such as the display or memory, and in order to save energy during periods of inactivity. Okay, this is what happened to us essentially. In life, things cycle from states of activity to inactivity. The state of activity is what I call evolution. And the state of inactivity is what I call involution. Okay? Being active, or a being who is active, is evolving by way of experience and direct observation, which is downloaded directly into the subconscious mind, which is your higher mind. And being inactive is one who is involving oneself into progressive states of slumber. All right? When a soul seeks to rest, it reduces its power or energy, force, which then diminishes the capacity of memory function, just like a computer. This is what happens when the soul is said to be falling, or when you hear about a soul that fell. Essentially, a fallen soul is a soul that has fallen asleep. And it might take eons for that soul to regain consciousness, which is the deleterious part of it. Okay? Now, just as there are different phases of one that falls asleep, traditionally, there are also phases that a soul experiences as it falls asleep. And remember, as above, so below. We are only experiencing a microcosm of the macrocosm. Why? Because of the fact that many of us are essentially still asleep. Your most common phases of sleep in order are what? Gamma, which is high brain activity, and then moving progressively lower in hertz to beta, then alpha, then theta, then delta. These are the most common states of consciousness. As souls, which are individualized units of awareness or force that are as unique as, let's just say, snowflakes, fingerprints, etc., have fallen through various states of consciousness and have arrived at a particular state of consciousness in which we can recognize the fact that our souls now possess or are in possession of an avatar. And we engage in experiences with other souls that also possess avatars. And we are aware enough to readily engage in procreation of other avatars, etc. This dream world, or this matrix as I like to call it, is simply just a state of consciousness similar to the ones I just named, in which you, like, when I name, your alpha state, your beta state, etc., gamma state, this matrix is simply just a state of consciousness, okay? And you exist throughout these states of consciousness, and now you are simply just conscious enough or aware enough to affect and impress your will upon others. So, right now, you are experiencing a lucid dream. Right now, you are experiencing a lucid dream. Time doesn't really exist. The only reason why time exists to you is because a group of Europeans who were probably between the ages of 30 to 60 years old got together and said, you know what? Let's make this year blank, commemorating a mythical deity who never really existed in the first place. You exist within a dream world, Neo. Your reality consists of a progressive series of experiences which make up your own subjective reality. Your reality consists of a progressive series of experiences which make up your own subjective reality. Furthermore, you share many of your experiences with others, which makes your reality a consensus reality, as Hakeem Bey has also said. And I heard him use that term, and when I heard it, I said, I was listening to him, and I heard him use that term, consensus reality, and I said, hell yeah, that's exactly what it is. We reside within a consensus reality. And ironically, the moment we exit out of the alpha state of consciousness, as we're falling off to sleep, as we exit out of the alpha state of consciousness and enter into the deeper theta state of consciousness, we draw a little closer to where our souls were before we involved ourselves within matter, or what we commonly refer to as the elements. All right? And one of the reasons why it seems hard to change portions of your reality, why sometimes you feel that you're so powerless over your situations and over your life. One of the reasons why it seems hard to change portions of your reality as one being in a lucid dream, because some people might think, well, hell, if I'm in a lucid dream, then this should be a lot easier to change shit in my life. But here's the thing, is that for one, you exist within a shared reality with multiple players who also have the capacity to create and manipulate for or against you. And two, in this state of consciousness, will or force is generally pretty weak unless one is adept in the art of mastering his or her reality and the laws that govern it. All right? And to know that, you must know yourself. The laws of Tahuti or Hermes, the thrice great, simply codify various laws that, I don't want to say govern the many states of consciousness, but are interwoven into the very fabric of various states of consciousness. So, and I'm going to say that again. The laws of Tahuti or Hermes the thrice great simply codify various laws, and these being that which are interwoven into the very fabric of the various states of consciousness themselves so tightly that these laws are essentially inseparable from the dimensions, planes, or states of consciousness themselves. These laws should be interpreted as forces that naturally manifest themselves during the unfoldment of cause and effect processes and do influence cause and effect processes. Now, during the courses or cycles of involution and evolution, beings of various degrees are manifested within this dream world in various degrees. Okay? The observation of these souls being either quote unquote good or bad is referred to as the observation of polarity or observing polarity. Poles are inherent within all life forms. Hatred is the repulsion of one pole in relation to another. Love is the acceptance of one pole in relation to another. And when I mention hatred and love, I should use fear, because hate is not the opposite of love. Fear is the opposite of love. Okay, just to really clarify that. In relation to racism or bigotry, that is one pole repelling against another pole. And like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad once said, racism and or bigotry is not necessarily a conscious act, but is inherent within the nature of a being itself in accordance with its most dominant pole. He didn't say it. He didn't say it like that. I mean, I'm just paraphrasing, but basically that's what he was saying, is that, at the core of racism or bigotry is an instinctual nature. And oftentimes many people don't even cognizantly realize that they're exhibiting this nature. Okay. Now, during the normal course of action, a person's most dominant pole will always manifest, even if it manifests unconsciously. When you look at wars, disagreements, fights, they all manifest as a result of polarity being manifested in different degrees within the same plane of experience. But back to the topic at hand, the physical body is your mode of transportation in this consensus reality. Why? Why is the physical body the mode of transportation in this physical or consensual reality, right? Because the womb is the portal or entrance that one must pass through in order to take part consciously in this consensus reality. The womb is the portal that you must pass through in order to take part consciously in this consensus reality. Those that do not enter this dimension through the womb must reside as spirits, fairies, elementals, etc., and are limited in their interaction with those that do come through the womb. Within this dream world, you have various programs that all run concurrently with one another. What we interpret with our five senses as physical, quote unquote, reality has an underlying source code that is computed by higher intelligences. And we are linked together in this consensus reality by way of the subconscious mind. And in relation to the subconscious mind, there doesn't exist a subconscious mind for each individual. No, there does not exist a individual subconscious mind that is somehow separate from someone else's subconscious mind. No, the subconscious mind is a collective. The subconscious mind is similar to the internet in that each soul must log in to the subconscious mind with this is also what I refer to as the field. The subconscious mind is what I actually refer to as the field. And each soul must log into this subconscious mind, okay? Which is why many people give testimony or give testament to the fact that they dream the same things, or when they have these near-death experiences, they're pretty similar, okay? They're really pretty similar. And to access this subconscious mind, it's not just individual, but it's collective, okay? And in relation to the field, when I speak of the field, I think Michael Talbot talks about this also in his book, The Holographic Universe, as well as Thomas Campbell. He talks about this, I believe, in his book, My Big Toe, which toe is an acronym for theory of everything. And I don't really like using the word believe, but I'm not sure if he talks. Let me just say that. I'm not really sure if he mentions it, but I would go as to say he does. But anyway, regardless, both books are powerful. So I strongly would recommend that you do pick up the book by Michael Talbot, The Holographic Universe, as well as Thomas Campbell's book, My Big Toe, in which toe is an acronym which stands for Theory of Everything. Okay. And basically, they're saying that there exists this field in which everything that can potentially occur exists within this mysterious field, okay, which I actually subscribe to as well. And by accessing portions of this field, you can manifest various realities into your conscious existence. And our bodies are simply just avatars created within the multi-dimensional portal called the womb. Our bodies are simply just avatars that were created within the multi-dimensional portal called the womb. Okay? This is the portal that the fallen ones pass through in order to enter into this jurisdiction. Okay? So, you see that we are not just avatars having a spiritual experience. We are spirits essentially having a fleshly experience, okay? But since many are asleep, they fail to realize this fact and commonly interpret this dream world in the opposite manner in which they should. And the reason for this is simply ignorance, which is why knowing is half the battle. This dream world that we experience is similar to a graphic user interface, a GUI, like Microsoft Windows, for example, an operating program, an operating system. And one thing that I did not know was that I learned recently from one of my teachers, that we also inherit our capacity of consciousness through ancestral DNA, which is a massive system containing source codes that are run by a quantum supercomputer that accesses this field. So you have this quantum supercomputer that is able to access this field. This quantum supercomputer is intrinsically feminine as well. When you look at a child is born with access to the subconscious mind, along with default operating programs inherited from the genetics, DNA, deoxyribonucleic acid of the parents. And although what's interesting is that certain portions of DNA can be unlocked within the genetics of man, thus later giving rise to an entire race of Illumined ones. And the ancient Americans, as well as the ancient Africans, were very skilled in this area. During previous versions or ages of the Matrix, superhumans existed, which were beings that possessed certain genetic keys that unlocked portions of this field. Okay? These were the giants of old, the men of renown. In the previous version of the Matrix, the Egyptian high priests, the Comedian high priest, controlled the Matrix construct, which can be viewed as a loading program. Now, this is important, so really listen, really key in on this, okay? If you are able to consciously access or even control this Matrix construct, which when I speak of Matrix construct, the Matrix or a Matrix construct is basically that field in which all possibilities and probabilities exist within a vacuum or a sea of nothingness, which includes all things at the same time. You can remake the Matrix, aka this dream world, as you see fit. Okay? And this is very powerful. And indeed, a few high priests possess this ability in which you can manipulate time and space. Okay? Now, to keep this technology from getting into the wrong hands, various rights were established in order to safely pass this technology on to only those that would be able to handle and preserve these mysteries. And over time, certain schools developed ways in which to access this quantum field and subsequently shaped, built, and protected vast empires and communities centering around this technology. And Those that were not privy to this knowledge, or to the knowledge of this ancient technology, looked at these various priesthoods as gods, in which essentially they were, because they controlled and were able to manipulate the field, because they were able to access this matrix construct. Okay, now, and even in the movie The Matrix, it spoke of Morpheus was speaking to Neo about a man who was born inside, who was able to change things at will, and the oracle prophesies his return. So it is possible, but this knowledge was highly guarded and protected, and to even access this knowledge, you had to pass through various degrees of initiation. Okay, because you can do an extreme amount of damage with this technology, not just in this dimension, but in other dimensions as well. Okay, now, as this current age draws to a close, we are witnessing what can happen when even elements or pieces of this technology fall into the wrong hands. People get enslaved, murdered, you see violence, pestilences, extreme weather patterns, etc., seemingly without consequence. However, since these things can be predicted, they are never outside the bounds of control, as the architect said to Neo in the second movie, The Matrix Reloaded. What has happened is that the youngest race, who is not an indigenous race to this planet, has captured elements and pieces of this technology. However, since they don't fully understand it, they use it for destructive purposes. They use it for power, lust, greed, etc. But what is important is this: the consequence for abusing this technology can carry over into other dimensions, which can lead to beings on other frequencies punishing those that abuse these technologies. Okay? And this was the reason why this science was so guarded, is because it was for the protection of those that were ignorant in getting this technology and creating chaos. It's just like having a loaded gun in your home. You must keep it locked up. You can't just let your children play around with loaded guns. You have to be responsible and lock those things up. So basically, the consequence for abusing this technology can carry over into other dimensions, which can lead to beings on other frequencies punishing those that abuse these technologies. Meaning, if you use a system that can alter and transform entire dimensions, and if you use that system to damage or injure your neighbor, you can be held liable for it. And one thing that the high priests knew was that for every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. For every action there is an equal and opposite reaction. They long ago they knew this. Reaction is the cyclical occurrence of a previous action. So what is occurring now is that many hyperdimensional beings, extraterrestrials, are starting to demand payment for the injury that a certain race of beings on this earth has committed against celestial orders of high priests. But here's the thing: since they had access to this technology and were using this technology, they were able to develop thought forms and align themselves with various entities. So what we have now going on is essentially a galactic war. And these hyperdimensional beings are really starting to demand payment for the injury that was caused, the damages, okay, that a certain race of beings on this earth have committed against celestial orders of high priests. And ironically, this race of beings that is doing this wickedness is mad at the indigenous peoples of the world for discovering this technology and making it available to them, even though essentially they stole it. So now, since this age is drawing to a close, or it has actually closed, I'm speaking of the age of Pisces, ushering in the age of Aquarius, many celestial races of beings are taking down this system, or trying to take down the system to prevent further damage to other planes, okay, as this plane is connected and melts into other dimensions. So what occurs, quote unquote, here affects what occurs, quote unquote, there. So what we are witnessing is an expression of the nature within man and the will of many different celestial beings. And those without the gnosis to understand, overstand, and understand are getting caught up in the middle of this cosmic war and are getting played and manipulated by one side or the other. Okay? Or I really can't say played or manipulated, because it also has to do with the will at the same time. Okay? But whatever pole you align yourself with, that will make all the difference in the world. So indeed, we are in some of the best of times and some of the worst of times. But whatever your pole is, align with it. Because you'll align with it naturally anyway. And we're all here to do what we're all here to do, and you will end up wherever you are destined to end up. And that's a fact. So, I am Brother Prodigy, William Samuel Lee Bay. Today is April 13th, 2015. Islam and Hotep.